What is going on, guys? Kevin here to bring you a new video today where I am going to be doing another edition of Horror October, where today I'm going to be talking about my favorite film so far in this series. Man, oh man, was this a fun freaking film to watch. God damn, I love this movie so much. And I'm so thankful I heard about it because I'm just so glad I watched it. Like, oh my god, I've been waiting all day to talk about this movie. It's so great. I'm sorry. Anyways, yesterday I watched a movie that, has some controversial reviews on it that hasn't always been reviewed that great, which I'm kind of surprised about, but I guess it's recently gained like a cult status for being like a great movie because sometimes when movies first come out, their reviews aren't so great. Yesterday, or last night, I watched In the Mouth of Madness. What a fantastic fucking film that was. Oh my god. I've never had so much fun watching a movie than that movie in a long time. I would say it's a movie by John Carpenter. I would say it's not quite as good as The Thing, because The Thing is one of my favorite movies ever. But it's pretty damn fucking close. It's so great. So great. The score from John Carpenter immediately sets the great tone for the movie, and just like the whole story that gets developed, the world that's created, and I guess the world that's created within the movie too, is just like so cool, and like it's created like so masterfully, and I just love every part of it. I love absolutely everything about it, like how the story was told with what kind of world they were living in, and what they did with it. I didn't think the writing was bad at all. I felt like they really capitalized on it well, and I thought it was good. A lot of reviews were saying that it was like confusing or pretentious, and complicated. Or I was just like, what are these people on? Like, this movie was not confusing, and if it was, then maybe you just didn't take the time to think about it enough. Because like you shouldn't just say a movie's bad just because it's confusing, because this movie was so goddamn great. And like I had to think about some parts, and there were some things that were said at times where I'm like, wait, what did they mean by that? Where I would like rewind it and watch it again, and then I'd be like, okay, that makes sense, because I'd have to I'd hear it a second time. I'd be like, okay, that makes sense now. So basically, but yeah, I'll talk about like what the story was about. It was about this guy, played by Sam Neill, who, the story starts out with him getting admitted into a mental institution, and so that's kind of cool. And then, he's like supposedly glad to be there, and he like draws all these crosses on himself, and seems like he's going insane, from the get go. And he's like, yeah, I don't really want to get out of here. And then you're led to be like, okay, well, what brought him to that point? And like I didn't know if they were gonna like tell the story on that. I was like, are they gonna tell me how he got here? And they do. They go into a long story about how he got here. Most of the movie is about how he got to that mental institution. So like you're like, okay, he's happy to be there. Why is he happy to be there? So this whole story unfolds with this author named Sutter Kane, who writes these novels that are like horror novels. And when he writes them, they're basically like novels that like come to life. They're like real. So like when this guy writes, for some reason, I think it's because of like these monsters, I want to say. That doesn't really matter that much, but I think it's something having to do with like monsters having an influence on him. But like whenever he wrote a book, the story would come true. So then, interestingly enough, he's putting out this new book called In the Mouth of Madness, which is the title of the movie. Anyways, so like this guy played by Sam Neill, whose name is John Trent, goes on an investigation with his coworker, I guess, Linda Stiles, who goes with him to this place, because his novel In the Mouth of Madness wasn't released yet. So he was like, okay, I guess his job is kind of like an investigator somewhat. So his job is to investigate this and to get this book to be released. essentially, because it wasn't released yet. And so he goes on this journey to this town to find said book, and get it released, until he finally realizes, here's the catch, it can get a little confusing here, where he realizes that what he's doing is actually, what he's doing in that very moment is actually coming from a story that he's in the Mouth of Madness. So what he's doing to get that book back is actually from the story in the Mouth of Madness. So he's actually venturing into he's fulfilling his story by going to this place, and everything that he's doing is part of this book. So it's like this guy, Sutter Kane, is writing what's going to happen to him. It's crazy. It's crazy. So he goes to this town called Hobbs End in New Hampshire, which isn't a real town. I tried looking it up before I even found out that it was just a made-up town by Sutter Kane. But yeah, it's not a real town. It's a town that he actually wrote throughout his books. It's actually the name of one of his books. You can see it in like a poster. It's called Hobbs End. So you're like, okay, this isn't real. And like, he refuses to believe the fact that, what's being told as fiction is actually real. And he doesn't want to believe that, all this monster shit and zombie crap and weird, ridiculous shit that this author is writing is what's coming true, because he sees all this ridiculous shit and he's like, none of this is real, none of this is real. He refuses to believe it until finally he meets Sutter Kane himself, who tells him like, yeah, you're part of this story, man, and this is what you've been doing, and this is all stuff that I've written. So all the crazy shit that he sees with like monsters and stuff is all stuff that was written into the story by Sutter Kane, including what he was going through. So, and he refuses to believe that. He was in denial for a lot of it, until he finally like realizes that like Sutter Kane could literally just like talk to him at any point and have the power to like change what was going on with him. So like then at that point he finally realizes like, okay, this guy literally has control over me, like over what's going on with me. Because at one point he's like, oh, one of my favorite colors is blue, and then he wakes up and everything around him is blue. So then he's like, okay, I guess this is real now. But yeah, and then like it just makes like all sorts of crazy stuff happen to him, and his coworker Linda Stiles gets kind of fucked over, or she gets like I guess like hypnotized or whatever, like because like she goes into this like place where like the moment she goes in, she's like basically like screwed up in the head immediately, and she meets Sutter Kane, but she doesn't get to say anything because she's all like messed up in the head, I guess. And she ends up messing with Trent, or Sam Neill's character, and yeah, that gets crazy. At one point she becomes like a contortionist and has like her head upside down with like her body like this, and you're just like, what? Okay, that's cool. Basically, John Trent is driven to insanity because of the fact that essentially he doesn't have control over his life, I guess, is what happens, is what it amounts to, because he realizes that his life is literally fiction, and that everything that's happening in his life is just written by an author, including at the beginning when he's like attacked by a guy who I guess like knew he was from the book. So he drives himself to insanity from that and ends up in that mental institution, and that's why he was happy to be there. But joke's on him, because that was part of the story too. It was all part of the story. So like he never really had any say in the matter, which is kind of crazy to think. But I mean, Linda was kind of like an acceptance of it, because she knew that like something was up with these books, and like she had read them, and like it was interesting. It was an interesting dynamic, because at first Sam Neill wasn't afraid of them, but Linda was, because Sam Neill was just like, oh, it's just fiction, it's not real, it's never gonna come true. But Linda was like, oh well, I mean, what if that fiction were to become a reality? Like, what if one day you found out you were the only one left and then that there was no one there? And he was like, that's not going to happen. But it does happen because in the end, he actually escapes from the mental institution and he finds out like there's no one else left. He's the only one left. And like that happens. And then basically, yeah, he gets to that mental institution from driving himself crazy. And then he gets out because I don't know, something broke him out. Something broke open the door, I guess. And then he watches the movie actually, which is a version of the In the Mouth of Madness, like in the movie, like it's a movie version of the book in the movie. So he watches a version of that and sees himself on that, and just starts like laughing, hysterically, like in a crazy sort of way, and then the movie just ends. And I have to say, I do kind of wish that the movie didn't just end, right then and there, because like I feel like I wish it could have shown like where did the movie end? Like where did the book end? Like where did his story end? Did it end when he woke up from the institution? Because it had been published into a movie, so you do get to see the end of his story. So like where was that end? And then like also I would have liked to see like, oh well, like what else happens after that? What is like the consequence of that? Because as a result of Sutter Kane, not just John Trent was affected, the whole world was being affected, because anyone that could read his book or his movie had the power to be influenced by him, and they would basically drive themselves crazy with like nightmares from this, because they would basically become like a part of the story essentially, and then just drive themselves to insanity. Anyone who like interacted with his stuff, because billions of people read his books, and then you have the movie that comes out where billions of people watch that. So basically it's like the whole world was being driven to insanity, and that's why it's part of the Apocalypse trilogy. This is the third entry in John Carpenter's Apocalypse trilogy, that shows off like, kind of like a threat to end the whole world, which it really was. Even more so than The Thing, because with The Thing it was kind of just like a localized thing where they didn't really let it spread quite, I don't think. Like at least they say, because like at the end you don't know if there's like still a monster alive, but you don't think there is. And then with the Prince of Darkness, they end up banishing this thing into a mirror. So it's kind of like this was like the most like terrifying one out of the three, and it was, I will say, it was kind of terrifying to watch. I'll have to admit, it was like a fun but scary movie to watch, actually. Like it was genuinely scary to watch and really fun at the same time, which is like the perfect combination. And like it just had like the best score, and just like the way its story was told was perfect, and just all throughout I was always interested in it throughout the whole time. Writing was not bad by any means, but yeah, there are some things I wish could have done better. I do kind of wish the ending was different. Like I said, I wish they could have expanded on it. Actually, I feel like they could have added more onto it. Like when it suddenly ended, I was like, really? That's the end? I'm like, okay. I mean, it wasn't a bad ending at all. It's just like it felt like it left something that was missing, I guess. I don't know. Maybe there was a deleted scene or something. Sorry. But maybe there's like a deleted scene or something. But yeah. And like, I will say I wasn't like the biggest fan of Sam Neill as an actor. Like, he's an okay actor, I guess. But I wasn't like a huge fan of him. But, I mean, he did decent in the movie. He wasn't like a bad actor. But I feel like they could have gotten like a better person to play that role than just Alan Grant from Jurassic Park. But it is what it is. And like at one point, like when Linda Stiles like ends up meeting Sutter Kane, like the guy who's like controlling all the things that are happening and creating all these worlds, she doesn't say anything to him, even though she knew like what he was up to and what he was doing. I find that kind of annoying. She just kind of like stares at him, and like she could have like said like, oh, could you change the story this way, or what happens at the end, or why have you been doing all this, or just like a question about the novels. But she didn't ask that, so I'm like, okay. But yeah, I really love this film though. I give it a 9.4 out of 10. That's my highest rating so far because it is the film that I've enjoyed the most so far in this series, and I just sorry this video is so long. I just had so many good things to say about it. But yeah. Either way, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I'll see you guys in tomorrow's video. Hey guys, some additional things to add about this great movie was that it reminded me a lot of a great movie called The Truman Show, which I absolutely love. So I'm glad it kind of reminded me of that because that's also a great movie too. And I know in like yesterday's video I had said the Drag Me to Hell movie like was like really unrealistic and like didn't have a wasn't really supposed to be that unrealistic, but I feel like with this it's like different because like this kind of like warrants the world that's created here is kind of like you can more like justify like the reasoning of why it's unrealistic because this guy is like creating this world by like writing these books. And then also just as well like with the suspension of disbelief, like I kind of wish Sam Neill's character could have like suspended his disbelief faster because like I was already like believing the fact that he was in this world, so like I wish he believed it just as soon as I did. So that's like a little something that also took away from the movie, but it's still a fantastic movie regardless. But yeah, hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I'll see you guys in the next one.